Namaste, you're on The Nation at 5. I'm Anand Narasimhan, and we start with news just coming through, and this is of significance, ladies and gentlemen. We, at the top of this edition of The Nation at 5, will try and decode the speech made by the Chinese President Xi Jinping soon after he confirmed his ascension for a third term and almost, quite literally, declared himself as the great leader. No one but Mao Zedong has been able to call himself or project himself as the great leader. Now, Xi Jinping's statement has been decoded at multiple levels, but what we are giving to you is the interpretation of the government and top sources within the intel mechanism within the government of India who are responding to and who have listened to that speech very, very carefully. Some highlights that stand out at the meeting of the Chinese Communist Party, where all signs point to a confirmation of a third term for Xi Jinping. Now, this is as per top sources within the government who are decoding this, who are telling us that this speech lasted for 104 minutes, which is well short of his 2017 speech. But in 2017, he had gone quite literally for nearly 180 minutes, nearly 3 hours or plus. But one thing that stands out is that the detailed report that he read out the last time around, he stopped short of reading the detailed report altogether. Now, what we are given to understand, and this is the understanding as we decode Xi Jinping's speech, is that security or safety, the words security, safety were used 89 times. Up from 55 times in 2017. So what does that mean? What does that imply? Reform declined to 48 from what was 68. So in 2017, he used the word reform in his report and in his speech 68 times. This time it's 48 times. The words security and safety have gone up to 89 from 55. Again, he did not lay out the full work report, but the report and the speech is very similar to what he had made 5 years ago in 2017. So it's continuing on the same path, same trajectory, same projection. That means expansionism is writ large, and they will push through with what are the stated ideals of the CCP as laid out by Mao in 1949. At the other aspect, Xi Jinping countered outside analysis on the state of China. He reflected CCP's ideological campaigns of the last few years. Anti-corruption narrative was also stated there. It is central to Xi Jinping's political image, and many have alleged that he has also used this entire angle to fix his probable opponents within the CCP. This is also he's projected as it being central to the prosperity of China under the CCP or under his regime. Xi maintains control and also reform, where he said are key to economic rebound. The CCP could see personnel changes to try and appease certain factions that seem to have come around and also backed Xi Jinping's ascension to a third term. The road all set, that's what it looks like. We have Venus Upadhyay, senior reporter, India and South Asia at Epoch Times with us, and Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, distinguished fellow at CLAWS and VIF. General Sharma, I'm going to start with you. Namaste. Thank you very much for making the time. Venus, thank you. Always a pleasure speaking with you as always. But General Sharma, I'm sure you would have also perused and listened to Xi Jinping's speech. How do you see, with respect to India and also the attitude of this CCP PLA regime under him? Is he all set for a third term? Does that make him a great leader, second only to Mao? Or perhaps is he trying to project himself as the same as Mao?
Yeah, thank you, Anand, for inviting me. Fact is that he is a different leader. He is not made in the mold of Deng Xiaoping, Hu Jintao, Jiang Zemin. He is different, and that is proven. Now, he comes to the same level as Mao or not is a separate issue, and that time will tell. But yes, he has proven in many ways that he is different than those. Now, having said that, the speech was interesting. It cannot be compared with the speech to the 19th Party Congress. That's because 19th Party Congress, he started with enunciating his own thought into the constitution. So it was a rhetoric required of a different level. It was also a speech then when he coined a new word called in the new era, when everything became new era. So there was a different context. The 20th Party Congress speech is more on rhetoric, is more on continuity, as you rightly mentioned, out of his policies over a period of time. So then this is a different matter altogether. There are 3 to 4 critical issues that come out. One is that the communist ideology, the ideology of being more red than the normal red is absolutely clear. He is more anxious about the strength to the Communist Party and anxious about the public. So all his statements about security, which so many times that he repeated, or safety, relates to all types of safety. It is national security, it's also water, it's also demographic issues. There are also issues pertaining to disaster management. So he has included security. So he has taken the larger securitization debate in which each and every issue has been taken up. So that's an ideological moorings of his entire speech. He has reiterated some of his policies which people thought he might mellow down under pressure of people, like the zero COVID policy. He didn't mellow it down. He did not mellow down on Taiwan and Hong Kong. In fact, he came strongly on Taiwan, says that though he wants peaceful reunification, he will not hesitate to use force, which is actually a very potent statement given out by him. And on economic frontiers, I think he is still sticking to his policies of which we have noticed, common prosperity and dual circulation, meaning that he wants the difference between the rich and the poor to be brought under control. So there is a substantial continuity in his entire speech, which was evident in the course of this 105 minutes or something that he spoke.
But will it pass muster with the Chinese people, Venus Upadhyay, or are there further disturbances? Because there have been talks about a democratic movement coming through. There was this huge poster that came through, which the Chinese wanted to tear down on any mention of it, which resisted Xi Jinping's repeat at the third term. There was a lot of gossip on social media that there is a coup that's being planned and military is marching towards Beijing, etc. in the run-up to this 19th Congress. How would you see his speech?
I think I would like to see the Xi Jinping in the larger context of where China is moving, what China's larger objectives are, and all the other objectives that started, with this Congress or the past Congress, were the objectives that started with Mao. I think it's also important to understand that the plenary that happened before the Congress, the fourth plenary that started the Sunday before the Congress Day, the message that came out was that Xi Jinping is the core of the CCP. So which means that the Xi Jinping thought, which was enshrined in the Constitution in the previous Congress, would continue to lead CCP towards its goals. Now, what are those goals? Those goals are basically the goals, the mid-century goals that lead the CCP. Those goals are basically the goals that have fundamentally Mao's vision or Mao's 100-year plans for China's development. And the mid-century goals are basically all about China being the superpower. So I feel that the Xi Jinping speech and whatever has transpired in the past few days has to be looked into that context. There are a lot of people who are saying that Xi Jinping's Jinping.
Venus, I think I have a bad audio through with you. I'm not able to hear you clearly. We just sort that out and then I'll come back to you. But General Sharma, how would you see the impact on India? How should India infer what Xi Jinping wants to do? He's not mentioned India directly, but there has been symbolism. Bringing in one of the, what China claims is a soldier from Galwan, celebrating him as a hero, projection. Will China continue with its expansionist designs, or are they going to consolidate, and will Taiwan and its the open declaration of America as an adversary actually hog more of Xi Jinping's attentions over the next 5-10 years? Because their idea is to try and annex Taiwan over by 2027. It's not, and they're consolidating on Tibet, they're asserting, and they actually want the successor to Dalai Lama be appointed by the PLA and the CCP rather than by the entire group that is led by His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
So if you follow it correctly, he did not state about United States also, or any Western countries also. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have that interest towards the West and what the West is doing, especially the United States, which he feels is a big challenger. So having said that, his formulations on Taiwan, as I mentioned, were very important. He said he would use force. Now, coming to the line of actual control or the relationships with India, I think there have been attempts to bring about some rapprochement. If you follow what the speeches of last 4 to 5 months given out by his spokesman of the foreign ministry or by Wang Yi himself, which he said that they should start doing normal management of the border and the border should be normalized. And, so all these statements, even given out by the Chinese ambassador to India recently, about 15 days ago, that we should have normal border management. So there seems to be an anxiety to bring about some kind of normality into the border so that they can progress on other fronts. But having said that, we must not forget that there are those formations that came from Xinjiang who are making permanent accommodation of this level of 100,000 people, etc., opposite Ladakh and in Tibet, and they are not going back there. His kind of infrastructure development gives rise to great anxieties among people. There is a new road called G695 that's supposed to run about 15 kilometers from the line of actual control all over. All this infrastructure development and the forces location there actually imply that he has motivations here. But having said that, is China ready for a war? That's a question that needs to be debated and has to be understood in the light of what China wants in the long term. The rejuvenation of a nation, rejuvenation of Chinese people, the second centenary goal. The second centenary goal he spoke in the speech itself, which is the 2027 goal when the PLA completes its 100 years. So, the whole fact of the matter is China ready to accept the kind of economic sanctions and the weaponization of economy that Russia has to face in the course of Ukraine war when he comes to the next war against India or against Taiwan. So he has to be prepared for not a war on the border alone, but there are many wars being fought like the wars being fought in Ukraine. And those many-fold wars that took place, that is what China has to be prepared for.
Because one of the aspects for Vladimir Putin is the gas dependency that all of Europe has on Russia. Here, he will have the rare earth minerals control and technological dependency as far as chips and also any other production outlines as far as electronics is concerned. A lot of it, although Taiwan manufactures a chip, if there is forceful annexation, then he controls the world's technology omnibus as far as hardware is concerned. So is that going to be the card with which he will push through his expansionist designs, Venus Upadhyay, and try and keep the world at bay, like what Putin has been able to do? Despite all the drumming up, he's currently annexed 18% of Ukrainian territory because that's what suits his interest.
I think those are very sensitive things, and then we would have to watch how the situation develops. But these are valid concerns, and I think these are valid questions. Sources have also told me that during the recent conference in Shanghai, the maps that the Chinese distributed of the Chinese territory included the Indian territory of Ladakh and other territories that China claims. So I think that gives a very clear message. That was a prelude to the CCP Congress. So I think CCP's intentions are very clear on that front. And we also have to keep in mind that the world has started to wake up to CCP policies. CCP was history is already Fortune, which was written by a former U.S. diplomat. And he has mentioned over there that there are 300 industry leaders who are actually asking for contingency plans when Russian invasion of Ukraine happened. And now they're concerned about the same can happen in Taiwan as well. So I think these are very valid questions, but these are, I think we will have to keep a watch and we'll have to keep asking right questions.
Well, we have to. And General Sharma, how would you see? What should India do? How should India respond? Because like you mentioned, there's settlements. That's one of the aspects. They're also consolidating in Lipulekh. We know, despite their toning down on Gogra, their hot springs, There are other places where the Chinese are improving their build-up, military, and consolidating themselves. There are also boots on ground, which we are seeing in Skardu. There is increasing presence as far as Hambantota port is concerned. So India is being encircled slowly and gradually. Even over in Arunachal, those settlements have now become permanent. And most of the people who are coming and settling there as villagers are all former PLA.
So that is true. So that is what the whole thing is all about. While one thing is being said that there should be normalized border management, but it is not reflected on ground. You know, one of their research professors went to King's College and he said, look, you will be India should start expecting that the aircraft carrier group will be in Indian Ocean in next few years. Well, that sounds very ominous for us. So if you say what exactly is happening on the frontier, despite the villages being established there and despite the roads that he's building and the extension of runways and the blast fence that has been built there and the railways coming in, these are not trends that we can surpass. We need to be very cautious of the kind of developments being carried out. There is no de-escalation. Now, having said that, on the line of actual control in Ladakh, except in Demchok, which is still problematic, he has created buffers all over, which makes it that he has pushed, created a gap between Indian and his own PLA troops, so to make sure that there is no altercation takes place and no scuffles take place. So kind of fix the border in a manner that suits him, the way it has been carried out, especially in Exaichen from Depsang Bulge right up to Kailash Range. So that it is having done that, created the gap. He's still building up his defenses. So we cannot, loosen our control on this whole area, and we need to be excessively vigilant in times to come. This is the geostrategic pressure which the Chinese are bringing on to us from our side, also from Gilgit-Baltistan side, because like you said, Skardu and all the work being done in Gilgit-Baltistan and POK. So when you combine all this together, there is a geostrategic pressure being retained on India, and we need to be cautious of that.
But final question, Venus Upadhyay, Xi Jinping or the Chinese traditionally have developed a strategy where they like to win a war or win over a country without firing a single bullet. So they build up enough of amount of pressure, trying to bully you into submission. Is it something that they're going to try with Taiwan, or do you believe that his hand will be forced? Because the PLA has not fought a big battle. Even in Galwan, they got found out once India decided to respond. 2017, Doklam, the same thing happened. So they tend to psych you out into submission. Is he going to change strategy? Is he going to use non-conventional methods of warfare to hurt India? Whereas trying to create natural phenomena that will damage our projects, use certain other methods of, hybrid warfare. Are these possible?
I think, like you say, that are they going to psych us into submission? I think they can psych us into things. but the point is that they're going to they're going to be focused on their strategy and their goals, which they have largely enshrined, which are visible to the world, messaged from the Congress. They can give us glimpses of it. But the real thing that the party enshrines or the party intends, I think a question also has to be that, is it out? Plus the foreign policy, I think it's not conducted in isolation, right? So China, the messaging that China is given isn't conducted in isolation. And the way the world is watching it, the way the world is responding to it, it's a two-way process. So I think it's going to impact. Now, the way we respond to China, will that mean that suppose we be strong and China is going to stop to intend what it is intending? That's not going to happen. So it is going to change its strategy, or we can say that it is going to evolve its strategy. And so
we see. No, we have to see how they evolve the strategy and which way. Are they looking at India as an adversary or as an ally? And they're going to look beyond that. That's going to be important. And how does Bharat respond to this threat? Because China forever is going to try and slowly keep spreading. And they are in it for the long game. But they have goals to achieve vis-a-vis 2027. That's the second centenary of the PLA. And then 2049, that is 100 years of the PLA in the seat of power running China. So that's the entire CCP PLA establishment. So 2 goals, and between that is 2035, which seems to be the advancement or preponement of the date of 2049 to 2035, till when Xi Jinping believes that he can continue as president or as the person who's leading the cause of the CCP. General Sharma and Venus Upadhyay, thank you very much. We'll take this story forward with more insights and more voices later tonight on The Right Stand. For the moment, we take a very short break. When we come back, we turn the spotlight to Jammu and Kashmir, where the people have turned around and said, we've had enough of Pak proxies, enough of Pak-sponsored bullets. And this after the killing of Puran Bhatt.